Banking is hard. So just do what the government says. That Kate Daly Show starts now.
Your odds of dying from the hantavirus are 1 in 30 to 35 million. Compare that to your odds of dying from being struck by lightning, which are 1 in 15 to 20 million, or your odds from dying in a car accident, which are 1 in 8 to 9,000, or your odds of dying from a medical error, which are 1 in 1,000.
The role in the Middle East again, does Israel play in this?
Israel was created as the instrument to bring about the Battle of Armageddon and the fulfillment of prophecy, a war that will be used so that the American citizens and the other people in the world will get down on their knees and bang the answer to that. They're going to be told the only way we can guarantee no more war is if we destroy the sovereignty of nations and we come together as one humanity and government.
Right.
And I get people who still come to me all the time and say, Bill, you're all wrong. It's the Jews. The Jews are subverting the world. Man, it's not the Jews. It's not the Catholics. It's not the blacks. It's these men who belong to the ancient mystery schools, who meet in secret and decide the fate of the world. And they belong to all different races and all different nationalities and all different religions to the public point of view. But in secret, it's a different story. At the highest levels of all countries, they all belong to the same club.
The FBI and our partners are proud to stand here today together to bring justice to the family of Charlie Kirk and honor his memory. I want to express my deep gratitude to President Trump, the Vice President, and the entire White House who have been so incredibly supportive with both resources and just personally to the FBI as a team. They had our backs the entire way, and I just want to express my gratitude for giving us the resources we need to operate in this space to bring this sort of justice at this sort of speed. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie. In 33 hours, we have made historic progress for Charlie.
And from this gap testing, we've identified 33 positive cases amongst students. And from this gap testing, we've identified 33 positive cases amongst students.
Pennsylvanians who have tested positive to
COVID-19.
Today we have 33 cases.
There were 33 new cases.
The state of Minnesota today reported 33 new COVID-19 related deaths.
There are 33 confirmed cases in Arkansas.
That's the largest single day increase so far, raising the total to 33.
Massacre in Uvalde, Texas. 13 days ago, there have been 33 mass shootings across America. There have been 33 mass shootings across America.
A gun company is offering a $33 million settlement to families who lost loved ones in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting in Newtown, Connecticut.
Now, you estimate that the Titanic sank in latitude 41 degrees 33. Degrees 33.
Those are some really interesting clips, and Melissa's out today. Susan's going to be joining me in a little bit, but there were some things I wanted to show you and tell you about, and go a little further into, because sometimes when you're scrolling through Instagram and TikTok and stuff, you get some of the story, but not all the story. And of course, do I have time to do all the story? No, but I can add layers of context for you too, and help with that. Now, I just wanted to mention that first clip that I played was the hantavirus, the odds, okay, and your odds of dying from it are between like 30 and 50 million. Like it would be very difficult to die from the hantavirus, okay, and they're just spinning it in the press. So welcome to your Wednesday. My website is down. I have no idea why. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of that. And I'm so sorry for anyone trying to go there and listen. But hopefully you can listen here on YouTube and Rumble and X and Facebook and so forth. I just wanted to mention, I played a little bit of the 33 clip, and I just played a portion of it because there's so many 33s involved when stories come out, you know, and it's weird. So I also wanted to mention on the hantavirus, okay, the sailing of that ship where they found the hantavirus and the people that are I guess, have it aren't really speaking out, but then we have actors speaking out and saying that we're just people. We're not headlines. We're real. Well, nobody was questioning that you weren't real. Anyway, I just wanted to say for the record that it was a 33-day sailing. So there's that. Yeah. Anyway, and then they had 3 people that died from it. I just, I don't know that you can chalk that up to a conspiracy anymore, the whole 33, because it ends up showing up consistently. Whenever the media is on top of a story, you get a lot of 33. Okay. I'll just say that. Now, here's another clip of 33-day sailing. I know, the Atlantic Odyssey voyage. Anyway. Oh, you guys, we're in a world of hurt, aren't we? All right. So there's a couple of things that I wanted to present to you, and you guys can comment on them. That was Bill Cooper that you were listening to, and he was talking about the formation of Israel. And I thought this is really interesting clip to listen to. Okay. So here's Bill Cooper. Remember, they killed him just before 9/11. He was predicting kind of a 9/11, and they actually annihilated him on his driveway. So they said it was a standoff. It really wasn't a standoff, but they murdered him. Okay. Now he's the guy that talked about UFOs because he was military intelligence. But then after that, he said towards his death that he thought he was being used to give leaked, quote unquote, information when really the information was bogus. Okay. So he was there as military intelligence to tell people UFOs were real because the government's hiding it. But then he was like, yeah, I don't think so. I think they're actually feeding it to me so that I give it to you guys. Okay. So here is Bill Cooper, William Cooper. Here we go.
The role in the Middle East again, does Israel play in this?
Israel was created as the instrument to bring about the Battle of Armageddon and the fulfillment of prophecy, a war that will be used so that the American citizens and the other people in the world will get down on their knees and bang the answer to that. They're going to be told the only way we can guarantee no more war is if we destroy the sovereignty of nations and we come together as one humanity and government.
Right.
And I get people who still come to me all the time and say, Bill, you're all wrong. It's the Jews. The Jews are subverting the world. Man, it's not the Jews. It's not the Catholics. It's not the blacks. It's these men who belong to the ancient mystery schools, who meet in secret and decide the fate of the world. And they belong to all different races and all different nationalities and all different religions to the public point of view. But in secret, it's a different story. At the highest levels of all countries, they all belong to the same club.
Let me play that again, because it isn't really about Israel. It's about why it was formed and who's there doing the bidding. Okay. And then what conversation we're supposed to get swept into. Okay.
And I get people who still come to me all the time and say, Bill, you're all wrong. It's the Jews. The Jews are subverting the world. Man, it's not the Jews. It's not the Catholics. It's not the blacks. It's these men who belong to the ancient mystery schools, who meet in secret and decide the fate of the world. And they belong to all different races and all different nationalities and all different religions to the public point of view. But in secret, it's a different story. At the highest levels of all countries, they all belong to the same club.
So they're pretenders and they're using the state of Israel. So I say that a lot. And I honestly, this is Bill Cooper, by the way, this picture. If you're on YouTube listening, I know my site is down. I said that when I came in. I'm getting messages that my site is down. I know. So the website for streaming audio is down, but I just want you guys to know you can listen here. You can listen on Rumble. I don't know why it's down. So we'll get down to the bottom of that. Susan's going to be joining me in just a little bit. Melissa's out today. So that was an important clip because it goes to the, those that your Jewish friends that are like, you're against me, you want me dead, and I'm like, no, that's actually not true. I'm angry at the people that are pretending to be Jewish, that are doing the bidding and the things that kind of dictate what happens. Okay. You want to know who utilizes the 33. You want to know who designs things to happen. It would be that group, the group of pretenders, the group of Satanists. So just so we're clear, I really always want you to understand where I'm coming from on that, because people get really, I don't know, they're weird. They get really strange about that. All right. Here is a clip, and I wanted to show you this because I actually thought this was kind of funny and kind of interesting. So my daughter sent me this clip about conspiracy theory parties, and I wanted to bring this up to you before I talk about education for a second. And I thought that this was kind of fascinating because it kind of goes to something that they're kind of making out to be a joke, but actually might not be so bad. So I thought this was funny. And this is kind of what they're talking about. I'll show you an image here. So here we go. All right. So this is kind of what they're talking about. Okay. So here is a reel that people are watching.
Conspiracy theory parties for birthdays or gathering ideas with their family, where they come together and share their chosen conspiracy theory, placing it up for debate with their friends and family. Theories like, where are all the bodies?
I have never seen us build a new cemetery in my lifetime.
Secret labs in the Virgin Islands.
It's Epstein Island. It is also home to an underwater lab.
And as you could imagine, the list goes on and on. The idea is you choose your theory, share it with the group, with videos and photos to back up your theory as much as you can. People take notes on what's being shared by others and vote on their favorite theories or whether or not they believe it or not. The winners are the people who can convince the most people that their theory is true. Everyone gets their fair share of uninterrupted time to share their theory with the group. And I think it's an awesome trend. What a great idea. I really do hope this trend grows.
Okay. So I bring that up because there's a little truth to this as far as, are they conspiracy theories? No, they're fact theories. Not really theories, they're just facts. And there's more facts to explain conspiracy than to explain the narrative. Always. So with that being said, there's always a lot more proof in the backpack of somebody who is explained as a conspiracy theorist. Now, in that photo, they were wearing, of course, the tinfoil and everything else. But I just want you to know that I actually think this isn't a bad idea, and not to mock people for questioning things, but to get together in groups and basically talk about the things that you are thinking. Because usually you're thinking for a reason. Usually that thought comes for a reason. And usually you want to kind of explore those thoughts and everything else. And I think that that's a good way to do it, and have a party where that is the topic. Give us why you feel a certain way about something. I'll bet you a lot of people could be woken up this way. And so as much as they mock it, I would actually say that this is not a bad idea, because then you're not doing it on a family holiday. You're doing it on, like, say, you're saying this is for this reason. Let's discuss like what we think and what we're seeing, and do you have evidence? And it's like the gal that goes, hey, how come no more cemeteries have been built? And of course we know they go all the way down, the bodies on top of each other in cemeteries. But I did make this point in 2020 because I said, look, in 2020, they were saying we had, 500,000 more deaths than normal, and to 1 million more deaths than normal. And there wasn't any more space being made for these surplus people, that you weren't seeing busy cemeteries trying to bury bodies and things like that. And so these are the things to always watch out for. And I brought it up on my show, but not everybody has a show, right? So this is something that's kind of, interesting, right? So I just wanted to kind of put a little bug in your ear that it would not be a bad idea to get together under the commonality of understanding why you're getting together. So it's a meeting for people that want to discuss these things and feel like they can discuss them. And I don't think that's something bad. I think it's actually pretty great. So the other thing was this, and I wanted to talk about this for a second, because I thought this was kind of, just kind of interesting. Here is a clip from a girl talking about the education system. And then I'm going to add to this because most people don't know this. Here we go.
If your child was in the public education system and you had any conspiracies about the public education system, I'm going to tell you right now that you're probably correct. I am in college right now. to get my bachelor's in science and education. And I happened to go down a rabbit hole last night about who writes the books, because the books that I'm reading are wildly inaccurate. And McGraw-Hill is widely known as Robert Maxwell's company. Robert Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, that whole story, go look it up if you don't know it, okay? But I want to know who owned McGraw-Hill right now. McGraw-Hill is owned and operated by a company called Platinum Equity. Platinum Equity is owned, CEO owned, by Tom Gores. So I said, who's Tom Gores? Tom Gores, he also owns a telecommunications system company for the jails. All the recorded lines. Yeah. His brother Sam Gores owns Paradigm. Paradigm is the Hollywood company who has clients like Billie Eilish, Ed Sheeran, Coldplay,
True.
Sydney Sweeney. Why would they want a security system where they can hear, see, handle, tap into, get rid of telecommunications recordings in the jails?
It's an interesting question. Okay. And so does it go deep enough? No, not for me. There's way more to this. I've done many, many shows on this through the years. The education system is amazing because and not in a good way, because it was so overtaken from so long ago. And most people don't realize that. They think it's something that just happened within the last 5 or 10 years. And that's so untrue. So I want to clarify for just a moment. But by the way, just Tom Gore is this picture that I'm showing you right now online. And he's an interesting dude. He's an interesting dude. So they bought the digital content educational publishing company for $4.5 billion in 2021. It was previously owned by Apollo Global Management. And he also has stakes in Motorola. His portfolio included Motorola, Fujitsu, Alcatel. And so in order to be a person, an entity that is dealing with cell phones too, usually you're part of the club because they don't let that information just go to any private firm. It's kind of like Apple. Apple is totally owned by the government. So we don't realize that, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, most people don't realize that. So he was on the Forbes list clear back in 2002. He also owned a newspaper like Jeff Bezos. See, Bezos is a frontman. Okay. And I've said this before in the show many times. We have our frontmen, Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg, Gates, Jobs. They're all frontmen. I don't think any of them did what you guys think they did. I think that actually they were just posed as the frontman. So there's a face so that they can look like they're private, and a boy genius. Okay. They always say boy genius. Okay. So in this case, this guy gets the San Diego Union Tribune for an estimated $30 million. But as you guys know, that was in 2009 that Gores bought this. The problem with that is that newspapers were going down in 2009. So why would they buy it? Very interesting. And just like Bezos bought Washington Post. And so you have two people that I think are pretty hooked up in the government buying newspapers of all things. Because if you're a good businessman, the last thing you would buy is a newspaper post 2008. So very, very, because you would know that it wasn't going to work out very well for you. But Gores has a lot of vested interest in all kinds of different companies. But I did think it was interesting that he does the telecom for all the jails. So you can get transcript recordings of all of those conversations. And then, of course, owns why in this family are they hooked up with Hollywood, and then also him and his brother, and then also with McGraw-Hill. Okay. It's just very, very weird. Just the connections by themselves. So then I want to take you to this, because this gets pretty interesting. If you really want to know about education and what happened, you kind of have to go back to Norman Dodd. And Norman Dodd was interviewed by G. Edward Griffin. G. Edward Griffin did a lot of interviews. He's been on my show multiple times. He's also the author of Creature of Jekyll Island, that was a kind of exposing the Federal Reserve in 1913. He does an interview with Norman Dodd, and the interview is about the takeover of our education system clear back in like 1907, but done by these huge conglomerate nonprofits, Carnegie, Ford Foundation, things like that. So G. Edward Griffin, who wrote Creature of Jekyll Island, sits down and interviews Norman Dodd and says, what did you guys find? Because there was a big congressional investigation by a few people in the Reese Committee, named after Carol Reese, the Reese Committee. And so they wanted to sit down and really kind of figure out how Carnegie Foundation and Ford Foundation played a part in the education system. So I wanted to play this for you. Here we go.
The story you are about to hear represents a missing piece in the puzzle of modern history. Without this knowledge, many contemporary events are simply beyond understanding. You are about to hear a man tell you that the major tax-exempt foundations of this land, since at least 1945, have been operating to promote a hidden agenda. And that agenda has nothing to do with the surface appearance of charity, good works, or philanthropy.
Okay, so by the way, the premise that they really uncovered, besides the educational system being completely taken over, was the fact that the charitable things that we say, the Carnegie Foundation, no one even questions it because it's a foundation. Ford Foundation, everything is done through nonprofit dollars. Think about Gates. Think about all the people that own all of these crazy nonprofits and how they're utilized for bad, okay? For evil, actually. Here we go.
This man will tell you that the real objectives include the creation of a worldwide collectivist state, including the Soviet Union, which is to be ruled from behind the scenes by those same interests which now control the tax-exempt foundations. The man who tells this story is none other than Mr. Norman Dodd, who in 1954 was the staff director of the Congressional Special Committee to investigate tax-exempt foundations, sometimes referred to as the Reese Committee, in recognition of its chairman, Congressman Carol Reese. The interview you are about to see was conducted by me in 1982. I had no immediate use for the material at that time, but I realized that Mr. Dodd's story was of extreme importance, and since he was advanced in age and not in good health, I simply wanted to capture his recollections on videotape while he was still with us. It was a wise decision because Mr. Dodd did pass away just a short time afterward. In recent months, there has been a resurgence of interest in the substance of Mr. Dodd's story, and we have decided to make it available to the general public. And so what now follows is the full, unedited interview, broken occasionally only for a tape change or to omit the sound of a passing airplane. It stands on its own as an important piece in the puzzle of modern history. Mr. Dodd, let's begin this interview by a brief statement for the record, telling us who you are, what your background is, and your qualifications to speak on this subject.
Well, Mr. Griffin, as for who I am just, as the name implies, an individual born in New Jersey and educated in private schools, eventually in a school called Andover, Massachusetts, and then Yale University. And running through my whole period of being brought up, growing up, I have been an indefatigable reader, and I have had one major interest, and that was this country, as I was led to believe it was originally founded. And I entered the world of business knowing absolutely nothing about how that world operated, and realized that the only way to find out what that world was consisted of would be to become part of it. And I then acquired some experience in the manufacturing world, and then in the world of international communication, and finally chose banking as the field I wish to devote my life to. And I was fortunate enough to secure and live there. I lived through,
Okay, let's see.
immersed I was confronted with the question, Norm, what do we do now? I was 30 at the time, and I had no more right to have an answer to that question than the man in the moon. However, I did manage to say to my superiors, gentlemen, you take this experience as proof of something that you do not know about banking. And you better go find out what that something really was fool enough to accept that assignment, because it meant that you were going out to search for something and nobody could tell you what you were looking for. But I felt so strongly on the subject that I consented to. I was relieved of all normal duties inside the bank.
Okay, so I am going to tell you, because for some reason it's not playing the clip that I thought it was going to play. Let me do this. Let me try this.
Said Mr. Dodd, all of us that have a hand in the making of policies here have had experience either with the OSS during the war or European Economic Administration after the war. We've had experience operating under directives, and these directives emanate and did emanate from the White House. Now we still operate under just such directives. Would you like to know what the substance of these directives is? I said, yes, Mr. Gaither, I'd like very much to know. Whereupon he made this statement to me, namely, Mr. Dodd, we here operate on in response to similar directives, the substance of which is that we shall use our grant-making power so to alter life in the United States that it can be comfortably merged with the Soviet Union. Well, parenthetically, Mr. Griffin, I nearly fell off the chair. I, of course, didn't, but...
This is Carnegie Foundation he's talking about.
My response to Mr. Gaither then was, well, Mr. Gaither, I can now answer your first question. You forced the Congress of the United States to spend $150,000 to find out what you just told me. Yeah. So why don't you... I said, of course, legally, you're entitled to...
So what happened was they did this investigation and they found out that the Carnegie Foundation had these notes that were written. And these notes were all about the Carnegie Foundation saying they were going to change the trajectory of education in the country. And they were basically going to rewrite history. They had it in their notes. Okay, this was, I think, 1907. So he goes back, he sends his secretary in to find these notes because he has to have proof, right? So the Carnegie Foundation, the Ford Foundation, these foundations got together, and what they did was they wanted to start sending in the early 1900s our educators over to Europe to get trained so that they would be trained properly, quote unquote, in kind of like rewritten USA context, okay? So that way the teachers weren't just going to be homegrown teachers that had relatives that lived here and fought in wars here and understood America here. They were going to be sent over to Europe. And so his investigation came out, and it was like these foundations set out to basically screw over the children for eternity here in the United States, because there was this grant, they had the grant making abilities. They could spend their money on this and no one would be the wiser, and they could absolutely change education. And so if you ever want to see a really good interview, and I know he kind of talks slow, but be patient with him, is basically Norman Dodd being interviewed, this guy right here, being interviewed by G. Edward Griffin on education, because I'm telling you, he goes into all the detail and all the facts, all the things that he saw and perceived and looked at and said, oh my gosh, they are changing the trajectory. They're owning education from
1907 on, and they even wrote it down as their goal in their notes of the Carnegie Foundation. So I found that to be really compelling. And a lot of people that are on like Instagram and TikTok and so forth and Facebook aren't really telling the whole story, because they're trying to say that it was like just, and I'm not faulting the girl that did that video, because that is one big piece that will be eye-opening for people. Tom Gore. Gore is doing what he, owning McGraw-Hill and why. And you've got these weird people owning these things. But what's deeper than that is that the education system for over 100 years has been completely taken over. And that's the piece that people don't get. So I'm always trying to clarify, because out of, 38,000 hours of research, I can tell you that one of the scariest things was to see the goal of these elitists that run things, the ones that Bill Cooper was just talking about, how they run things and how they brainwash our youth and the college textbooks too. So it's none of that is off limits, and they are, there was a carefully crafted plan to do so. And most people don't see it. They don't even want to know, sadly. So we send our kids off to the school of the Romans, and we wonder why, they come home a Roman. Well, I don't think we should wonder anymore. I think that, when you send your kids off to school and they come back with ideology that is twisted, just know that it was by a plan. It was honestly those foundations, and they do a lot of NGO work across the globe. And usually it's not for anything good. A lot of people give them a pass, right? But it's not, they shouldn't be given a pass at all. It's horrid, basically. So then I wanted to play another clip for you, because I'm finding all these things kind of interesting. And this was interesting because this was John Stockwell. Now, John Stockwell was more of a, I don't know, I kind of see him as more of like a Democrat liberal, but he was ex-CIA, whatever that means, because they're always still CIA. And John Stockwell was basically talking about, I'm going to play this clip for you. Okay, he was being interviewed, and this picture is from the interview. And he was talking about how intelligence co-ops media and books, textbooks, all of it. Okay, here we go. And then I'm going to finish up with a clip with him talking about, they put in the A team and then the B team. We think it's Republican Party, Democrat Party, but in Washington, it's team A, team B. It's whatever's going to pacify the people while the big agenda gets done. It has nothing to do with parties. Okay, so he was the one that actually talked about that in the very beginning. So, or brought it out to people so they would understand what was going on with Republicans versus Democrats. That's just for us. That's just for us to argue over. It has nothing to do with Washington. Washington is all about team A, team B. Okay, here's John Stockwell.
Another thing is to disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds. And this is a major function of the CIA. 400 journalists cooperating with the CIA, including some of the biggest names in the business
at the time,
to consciously introduce the stories into the press.
Well, give me a concrete example of how you use the press this way, how a false story is planted and how you got it published.
Well, for example, in my war, the Angola War that I helped to manage, 1/3 of my staff was propaganda. Ironically, it's called covert action inside the CIA. Outside, that means the violent part. I had propagandists all over the world, principally in London, Kinshasa, and Zambia. We would take stories which we would write and put them in the Zambia Times, and then pull them out and send them to a journalist on our payroll in Europe. But his cover story, you see, would be that he'd gotten them from his stringer in Lusaka, who had gotten them from the Zambia Times. We had the complicity of the government of Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda, if you will, to put these false stories into his newspapers. But after that point, the journalists at Reuters and AFP, the management was not witting of it. Now, our contact man in Europe was, and we pumped just dozens of stories about Cuban atrocities, Cuban rapists. In one case, we had the Cuban rapists caught and tried by the Ovimbundu maidens who had been their victims, and then we ran photographs that made almost every newspaper in the country of the Cubans being executed by the Ovimbundu women who supposedly had been their victims.
These were fake photos?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't know of one single atrocity committed by the Cubans. It was pure, raw, false propaganda to create a an illusion of communists, eating babies for breakfast, and that's a totally false propaganda. Endlessly, a massive propaganda effort in Vietnam in the 50s and in the 60s, including the 1,000 books that were published, several hundred in English, that were also propaganda books, sponsored by the CIA. Give some money to a writer, write this book for us, write anything you want, but on these matters, make sure, you have this line.
Writers in this country,
Sure.
books sold and distributed in this country?
Sure, yeah. English language books, meaning an American audience as a target. We were planting stories in the Washington Post. By that I mean not through the soccer, but we actually flew a journalist from Paris to Washington to plant a false story. I mentioned the text of the story in my book.
So they would plant the stories in the Post. Did you guys notice that? Because I was part of Operation Mockingbird in the 50s. They took over the Post with Catherine at the helm. And then he was saying, you'd plant them in the Post. So he's mentioning the Post for a reason right there. And then he would say, well, it came through Zambia Times or whatever, because the agent would give it to Zambia Times, but then it looked approved and it looked like somebody had gone through it and vetted it because it was coming from a newspaper, an organization. So no one would question it, and no one would go all the way back to the agent that was sending it.
We've had articles in the Washington Post, the Star before it closed, Time magazine, that could only have been written originally by the CIA, Soviet submarine base, terrorist training. Here's a little island where the major source of income is selling spice to the West, Western tourism, and a large United States medical school. Tiny little island, 15 miles by 10 miles across, with 70,000 people, with U.S. medical students in their cutaways and sandals and their noses in books wandering all over the island. And yet, major press organs, Time magazine, running stories about their being so radical.
In terms of their interests, that's the A team. But they always have the B team that they can run out. Jimmy Carter, when Richard Nixon makes the nation too angry, or the nation gets too riled at the Vietnam War, or something like that. This is where they produced Michael Dukakis. He's a team player to the establishment. In order to be accepted as a presidential candidate, he did homage to the arms race.
Okay, so team A, team B, and I always do find that interesting when we're talking about teams, because I think that we don't really realize that they play us pretty badly on teams of right and left, and it has nothing to do with what goes on in Washington. In fact, I cannot remember what senator actually said, and it was, "Oh, the parties, that's for the people." Here, we're just people doing deals. They're arguing about parties. So they do it for us like, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, but it really has nothing to do with anything. And when John Stockwell was talking about team A, team B, when the people get a little restless, they put in team A. And you guys have noticed this because every 8 years, 4 to 8 years, we get a different team. 4 years or 8 years. You won't go 16 years with the same team. You guys notice that, right? And all the elections are super close, really close. Although over 60% are conservative in this country. So the majority is conservative. So then how do you get races that are that close? How do you do that? You don't. It's called election fraud. So basically he was saying, we put him in. Here he was talking about Jimmy Carter at the time, because when he was the most outspoken, like when he was doing like this picture right here, this was the 1980s. And he was talking to people about, the system. And he was saying, look, this is the system. This is how it works. And when people get restless, they just put in team A or team B, and then everyone settles down. And then everyone is taught by the media to go, oh, well, yeah, they get their 4 years. It's only fair. And then we're going to go in and get our 4 years. And then we're going to change everything. Now, let me ask you this. Does anything get changed? No. Not one thing. We don't get liberty back. Nope. We're not even talking about removing Obamacare. We're not even talking about abortion really anymore in this country. We're not talking about anything in this country other than just the drama of the day. There was a great clip. Trump was in this clip, and I was laughing. My husband and I were laughing about it because he was saying he doubled the size of the ballroom. Now, the question from the reporters standing out on the lawn should have been, why? Why are you doubling? And he goes, I'm doubling the size of the ballroom because we need it, right? Like he's trying to get them to agree. And of course, but he says, I'm under budget and I'm at budget. And so the reporter says something and it just really ticks off Trump, and he calls her stupid, which I don't have a problem with personally, because the media is stupid. I know, because I know a lot of people in media and they're total eggheads. Okay. So when I'm talking about the truth of media, I don't know sometimes who's more dense, the media or the politicians. They're both like talking to a golden retriever. They're really excited to see you. They don't want to talk about anything under the radar. They won't disclose anything. They're super good at like giving you a non-answer, and the media will never dig. So people in talk show positions like myself, having been on the radio for 16 years, I can tell you that they wait. They have a team of people, usually a couple of people at least. I never had that, but they have a couple of people who form the stories and the opinions for the hosts, and then the host gets on there and presents it. So they're just the presenter. They're the nice hair, nice teeth, pretty person-ish that gets on and goes, this is the story, and you should believe me and you should love me. So I do find it kind of interesting when I'm looking around, because I mean, after interviewing mayors, I've met some of the most stupid mayors, politicians in general, commissioners, I mean, you name it, governors. I've interviewed governors, I've interviewed senators, I've interviewed so many different kinds of people. And I will tell you that most of them are dumb as a brick. And the reason they're chosen is because they're as dumb as a brick, because then you can tell them what to do. And they'll do it, and they'll believe you. And it's kind of the saddish part of witnessing this with a front row seat, is that you get to know how stupid people are. But with that being said, I'm grateful for an awake populace. I'm grateful that there are people that are awake. And I just wanted to share with you a little bit more about education, because sometimes when we see these clips, sometimes when we see John Stockwell talking and we don't realize how deep that rabbit hole goes, like when he said, look, anything about Cuba was 100% made up, 100% made up. And one other thing that I have on tape, but I couldn't find it. It's somewhere in my treasure trove of clips. But he said something I'll never forget. He said, they're dunces. Yes, LB, they're dunces. Look, one thing that he did say was, as an agent for intelligence, what would happen is he'd consistently be told that he would get to the bottom of the story. He would understand the facts behind why he was being asked to do what he was being asked to do. That at some point he was going to be told, and it was going to blow his mind, and it was going to be amazing. So therefore, do what we're telling you to do, because we wouldn't do it unless we had good reason. And we're going to share with you the good reasons at a certain point in time. And John Stockwell came out and he goes, the time never came when they actually were sharing with me anything as to why I was asked to do some of the violent things I was asked to do. When I was asked to go down into South America and do this or that, he goes, normally your moral compass would say no. And it would say, stop here. I can't do this. This isn't moral, or you're stealing somebody's liberty, or this is even against our own constitution. Why are we doing said thing in this other country? Why are we being asked to do this? And then it was, wait, at some point you'll be part of the inner sanctum of the club. And for national security, you'll be part of the inner sanctum, and we will let you know as part of the inner sanctum. Then we'll tell you, and you will understand. And then you'll say, yes, I'm okay with what I did. And he said, John Stockwell, he said, it never came. It never came. That moment never came. It was always promised, but never surfaced. And he said that's when he lost faith in the intelligence community, when he finally realized that the intelligence community was there. And this is basically what he said in the clip. I know it was kind of hard to hear with the music, but he was basically saying their job was to figure out how to manipulate, brainwash, psychologically control the people. It's why they were built. It was the sole reason. It has really nothing to do with anything foreign, because anything foreign was completely made up 100%. They would just go and they would just entangle themselves in situations, make people really pissed off at them and angry at them. And then what they would do is then they would go, oh, this country hates Americans for their freedom. And then the American people would believe the lie. They'd believe it. Oh, they hate us. Why do they hate us? For our freedom. But it was really the intelligence agencies going down and screwing with people and doing some mass atrocities. And then, of course, they would hate us, but they would take it out on us, not the people that hide behind the curtain. So I go back to Bill Cooper, and Bill Cooper, it was very interesting, right? His statement. So if you're just joining us, this was Bill Cooper talking about the secret clubs. Here, I'll add his picture, the secret clubs that run the world. And it really, Israel is the thing they want you to discuss. But really it's who's directing Israel, who directs the affairs, right? Overall.
What role in the Middle East again does Israel play in this?
Israel was created as the instrument to bring about the Battle of Armageddon and the fulfillment of prophecy, a war that will be used so that the American citizens and the other people in the world will get down on their knees and beg. The answer to that, they're going to be told the only way we can guarantee no more war is if we destroy the sovereignty of nations and we come together as one humanity and government.
Right.
See, so have enough war, have enough atrocities, see how they profit off of war, see how the bad guys profit, and we will be begging to lose our sovereignty. We will be begging to come together as a world. This is what you see in all the movies too, begging to come together as a world to solve the problem so there's no more war. Yeah, they said no more war after World War I. It wasn't called World War I. It was called the Great War because it was supposed to be the end of war. Okay, here we go.
And I get people who still come to me all the time and say, Bill, you're all wrong. It's the Jews. The Jews are subverting the world. Man, it's not the Jews. It's not the Catholics. It's not the blacks. It's these men who belong to the ancient mystery schools, who meet in secret and decide the fate of the world. And they belong to all different races and all different nationalities and all different religions to the public point of view. But in secret, it's a different story. At the highest levels of all countries, they all belong to the same club.
That is true. Now, I will have to say that a lot of them happen to be Jewish. So I'm going to bring on Susan in just a second. Hopefully she's on. And I did want to mention, one more thing before I do that. Because I thought this was, I don't know, it was kind of compelling, but okay. So I don't know if you guys realize this. We always get a lot of shows and a lot of talk about World War II. Okay. World War II. And then of course we had the creation of Israel come out of World War II. Think about that for just a moment. Okay. And I was talking with some friends and we were talking about this because this is an interesting piece. You know how I've talked about data centers, and I'll bring Susan on just a second. You know how I've talked a lot about, by the way, yes, they're not real Jews. They aren't real Jews. They're pretend Jews, by the way. Yes, you're right. So I talk about data centers and I say these centers are not being built for data. They already have our data. Did they need the big centers? No. So we don't need more. We don't need huge spaces. Okay. And by the way, why are they taking in clean drinking water? Why would you have a data center that needed clean drinking water priority over people? When you use recycled, if you really had to have, or just the bottom of the pit water? No one ever answers that question. But I said they're building these data centers for a different reason. Eventually there'll be prisons. And I've talked about this. But I did want to mention one thing about World War II that I think a lot of people don't know. They first went in and utilized the hospitals as like a little mini Auschwitz. So they put a couple of gas chambers in the hospitals to try it out. And they got the doctors and nurses to kill the mentally handicapped and the physically handicapped first. And no one questioned it because they were hospitals. Then they built the Auschwitz centers, and there were agreements with Standard Oil, and there were agreements with rubber companies, and there were agreements with all of these different companies. And these Auschwitzes all happened near these places so they could provide free labor. Okay, so we could do a whole show about that. But I just wanted to say that they utilized these centers for the killing of the mentally ill. And when they got to the first 10,000 that they had killed in the hospital that you trust, the hospital, when that happened, they had a party celebrating the first 10,000 murdered. Okay. And people started to kind of know that something was wrong because they'd leave in these little gray buses and go to the hospital, and hospitals that we know and love were utilized. Doctors and nurses were utilized to put down these people like you'd put down a dog. And people started hiding their disabilities because they didn't want anyone to notice. Okay. So that way they wouldn't get put into a gray bus and then disappear, because what was happening, they were told that they were going to have a great life somewhere else. Okay. And that they were like, oh, they'll have a great life. No big deal. Go about your business. They'll be taken care of. You don't even have to worry about it. They're physically and mentally disabled anyway. Now, for those of you paying attention that can look into the future and actually understand kind of how things are done and that we repeat history, it would be very easy to say, hey, this person has a mental challenge. They don't believe the media and the government. So they're a conspiracy theorist, which is our new label for crazy. And basically, we're going to put them, into this place for a while. They'll be back in like a year or two. Don't worry about it. They'll be totally taken care of. And then they go into, say, a data center building, and no one would ever suspect or do not have access inside of a data center building to go check and see if there are people there. All I'm saying is that, have they done it before in history? Have they gotten away with it under a different pretense? Yes. Have they lied? Yes. Could they be lying about the data centers? Yes. Just saying. Okay. Susan, are you with me? Susan, are you with me? Let's see if she has joined. Here we go. Let's see. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Susan, are you with me?
I am.
Oh,
I'm right here.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So I just was kind of explaining the data centers and kind of explaining a little bit about what I think is going on, because they have said so many lies that I think that we should be suspicious, kind of like with the ballroom clip where Trump was saying, oh, I'm doubling the ballroom. And then he called the reporter stupid. I don't have a problem with him calling the reporter stupid, but people should be asking why they're building the ballroom. And the ballroom is even under a false pretense. It's what the military, and he's even said the military is in charge, and they're building something under the White House. And it isn't has nothing to do with a ballroom. It's so stupid. And so they've doubled the ballroom size. Why would you need a doubled ballroom size unless the thing that you're building underneath? And are they building a real data center underneath? They could be, and they could be because if you do that, you have no file request. You have no ability to do an investigation. You have no way to understand what's going on under the ground there. So they're building it there for a reason, to give them protection from liability. So what is it? And I just think that there's just so many things like this that we don't understand because we don't want to think that they're lying, but they are. So what do you,
They've lied to us so much.
I know.
We have to default to the assumption that they're lying. Just like if you have a family member who is an alcoholic or a drug addict, you have to default that they're lying and then sort through some of the details to come to the truth, because
my gosh,
you get burned many times if you give them the benefit of the doubt ever again.
Yes. Brilliantly said. Thank you for that. Brilliantly said. Well, it's the truth, because, this show for 16 years, you guys, 3 hours a day, I was covering the lies of local government, state government, and the feds and the CIA. And I was never out of topics. Think about that for just a second. Never out of a topic. And I always had stuff for the show, and it took hours and hours of digging because it was hard to dig for. But I always had stuff. And then you go back to COVID, and one of our callers is texting in and talking about the dancing nurses and everything else. And we were told that the hospitals were closed because they had so many people, and they were just the poor hero nurses and the poor hero doctors. Barf. And
then we drive past and see the empty parking lots and go, where are the patients?
Amen. And they were doing the dancing nurses videos. They had enough time to choreograph a bunch of nurses that can't dance and basically put that in front of people. And I'm like, you know what? If we don't understand that they lie, then that's on us, because we're not paying attention. We're blind. We're deaf. We can't understand things. I don't know. We're mute. I don't understand what our problem is, but they're lying consistently to us. They're lying about the Hanta thing too. Where are the victims? I would love to know where they are. Where are they? How come they weren't, everybody has a cell phone. Why weren't they doing videos? Why is it only the guy that was the influencer for COVID doing his little video about, you were real people? No one said you weren't. Believe us, believe our story. And I'm like, believe your story? Why would you even get on and say that? It's ridiculous. It is a lie if you're saying that off the bat. So, I mean, we're getting lied to again about the Hanta. So, and I played a clip in the very beginning of the show. Your chances of dying from Hanta are like 30 to 50 million. I mean, it's so ridiculous, and people are genuinely being afraid of it. In fact,
do you know what's
hospitals
so
are requiring masks.
I grew up in California, raised my family in California, and it seemed like every few years you'd hear about like one person who had the Hanta virus. And they were like usually like living in the forest.
Living in an old trailer with mice, and they were like resting in the poop of mice. I mean, give me a break.
Right. Exactly. And now they say the Peruvian variety is the one variety that is transmitted person to person.
Yes.
They've never once mentioned this in 50 years before now.
I know.
That there's by the way, there's a Hanta virus.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, 1,000 times yes, because we were that dumb. We're that dumb that people would actually take this as a thing that's actually happening. And we honestly, would we question it? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know that a lot of people are even questioning it, because the whole thing is just a mirage. And when I showed a picture on Facebook with a bunch of dummies sitting in the hospital beds, because I'm like, these are the first victims of the Hanta. But there have been things that have kind of told that that they, like when they gave out the COVID shots, they were like, oh, and this will ward against Hanta virus. And everyone's like, why? Why do we need that? Like, what was the point of that? And so there are people that are finally asking those questions, which actually, thank you for finally asking questions that matter, because these things are ridiculous that they talk about, and for some reason we get swept up in this as a thing. It's not. So.
Yeah, well, and there was supposedly a video that I watched of Dr. Zelenko that his team reposted, and it was him in 2022, because he came up with a protocol to treat COVID. He said all of these singular RNA type viruses, and then he lists them. There's several, and one of them is hantavirus. So the odds that there is now a mass internet with the parachutes, you saw the story about people parachuting into certain locales. You're like, really? It's the top news story everywhere. This is so.
Yeah. So they had the 2G rollout bird flu. When they rolled out 3G, it was SARS. I love this little graphic. 4G, it was swine flu. 5G, it was 2020. The swine flu of 2009. They had one in 1975 where they fraudulently upped the numbers of the Spanish flu from 1918. But the swine flu, 4G, and then, of course, 5G 2020, and 6G coming out with the hantavirus. So that was kind of an interesting one, too.
People are being terrorized by the media.
Yeah.
The media are terrorists.
Yep.
There is no question in my mind that they live for that. The clicks. There is
Yes.
somebody. There's lots of people just getting so
Yeah.
physically excited, let's say,
Yes.
by all the terror they're imposing,
Mhm.
because there's no other rational way to keep putting these things
Yeah.
at the top of the headlines.
Yep. And then the Hanteen River, South Korea, interesting piece of all of that because, they're the ones that were working adjacent with the CDC to construct this shot. What do you even call these things? The Hanta shot that's coming out. So it'll be interesting if we get the Hanta shot. And would anybody take it? Come on. Are we that dumb? Maybe we are. I don't know. Maybe people are that stupid. I don't know. I'm hoping not.
I think there's always going to be an even distribution, and there's going to be those people on one end who beg the government to give them whatever the government has cooked up in its lab.
Well,
please give it to me.
I will say this, the ship that they found the Hanta on had a lot of little biologists on it, but also it was a 33-day sailing. And where have we seen the number 33 before? Oh, in about everything. So I'm just going to say
You
that.
mean the one that Kash Patel kept repeating? We found the killer in 33 hours.
Yes.
You mentioned 33 hours?
Nobody says 33 hours. I mean, why would he go 33
over and
hours?
over and over. And yes, we heard you, Kash, 33 hours.
I
Yes,
know.
we heard it like 5 times.
But people won't, they won't even question it. Why? Because that's just, I do think people can't wrap their brain around it. They are coincidence theorists because a coincidence theorist can't handle what it means. If you start saying, is it a coincidence? Because a coincidence is so much softer and nicer to deal with. That's just a coincidence. I'm not a coincidence theorist, so I can't go there. But I don't think there are coincidences. But I just thought that was kind of interesting that they can't. There are a lot of experts that go, they just can't handle the thought of that many of people lying at the helm. They have to have hope in government somehow, some way. And so that's their God. And so they can't not think that. So they have to keep up the belief. And so a coincidence theorist believes that the government really isn't lying. There's only a couple of people that might lie, but the whole of the government isn't lying. And that's the sad part, I think, about the psychology of it, is that they're swept into this belief that most government's good, but we just got to get out the few liars. It's like it's directed by lies at the helm. That's the difference between awake people and people that are coincidence theorists. Anyway.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. And, we talked before about the Gelman effect.
Mm-hmm.
The Gelman effect was noted when you believe the news and believe the news and believe the news, except there's an article in your area of expertise, like accounting, and you go, wait a minute, they got those facts wrong. Or a situation that you knew about. And you're like, several of those facts are wrong in the article. And then you go, but I believe the rest of the news.
Yeah.
Oh, but it just happens to be that this article, they got it wrong in the area that you knew, but everything else is accurate. That just starts to defy, probabilities. It's more likely that most of the news is inaccurate.
Yes.
Or it's opinion, it's bias, it's shaped, it's,
So true.
Things that are left out, things that are put in that are unnecessary. And so
when I saw the 33-day sailing, I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
Really? And what's funny is if you asked AI about it, because I did, you actually have to ask a very pointed question to actually get the answer of how many days that sailing was, but it would say over 30. Because it doesn't want to keep admitting that the number 33 shows up all the time, which is just bizarre. So even the Titanic sunk at 33 degrees. There's just so many 33,000 emails Hillary had that she
Oh, did she?
deleted,
Oh,
33,000. Yeah.
gosh.
So just so many different 33 shows
That
up.
would actually be something really interesting to put into AI and say, how many times does the number 33 or
Yeah.
33,000 or whatever come up in news stories?
Yes.
And
yes.
then, you would
Yes.
find out that there is this whole pattern here. And
I
a lot of
agree.
people are starting to pick up on it. And you know who really starts to hone in on it are
Who?
people who watch TikTok.
Mm.
Because those little busy TikTok creators are like, hey, I just noticed this.
Yeah.
And people can consume that information in a minute, right?
Yes. Yes.
So you
Here-
learn a lot.
Here's a couple of questions coming in from the audience. I love these two hantavirus questions. Number one, we never saw anyone that was actually sick do any kind of video whatsoever. Anyway, but why do you announce that what killed 3 people before you do an autopsy? That is the truth. They were like hantavirus. And then they always showed somebody coming out, never showed the identities, and they're coming out in all these spacesuits. So that was kind of interesting. Why do you quarantine the passengers off the ship on different parts of the country? And why do you use a PCR test to file the virus instead of a blood test? That's what happened with COVID, and that's why they never had the full chain of COVID. COVID was actually never really proven. Because COVID was just a name for symptoms, and it was a name for all 90 symptoms that show up when anything shows up, flu, pneumonia, whatever. So that was interesting, why not a blood test? And that is very true. So I love the questions. Thank you. Anyway.
Yeah, you can't have all these inquiring minds,
Yeah.
What did Erica Kirk say when people kept asking questions? That just stop. Just stop. They just want us to stop. So stop, you listeners. Just stop asking these intelligent questions.
Don't ask.
All the thinking is going to get you in trouble. That's what they learned in the Soviet Union as citizens. Thinking, asking questions gets you in trouble.
Yep. And Erica, the little asset, Erica. Oh boy, never seen such grief. And boy, what a workhorse. So yeah, now part of the government and running Turning Point and a single mom. Sure, okay. Anyways, just the whole story is very, very strange. Yeah, I interviewed Charlie Kirk. I interviewed him a year before that happened last September. We're going to be coming up on the 1-year anniversary, and Erica's been very busy. No downtime for her. So, yeah. Erica.
Well, I got to get myself one of those gold pantsuits.
And some fireworks, apparently.
66 years old. I'm going to rock the
Do it.
The gold sequin
my
pantsuit. It's like
gosh.
Liberace, right?
I know. I'm like, have you heard of black? I mean, can you wear some black pants, please?
Gosh.
My gosh, what is
I don't know
wrong
what
with
to
people?
say about that fashion choice.
By the
right
way,
there.
that I wouldn't call it a memorial for Charlie Kirk, but whatever that was, had the entire line of succession at the event, which never happens. You don't do that. It was very weird. And when I say the whole line of succession for the presidency, you never have them all in one place because of what could happen. So I thought that was very interesting. And also just the whole nature of it became political speeches and not a hint of a memorial to be seen. And we still don't know where he's even buried or if he was buried. We don't know if he's actually alive or not. It's very, very, very weird. And so I was on Alex Jones not too long ago talking about that very thing. I was being asked. Alex actually asked me, do you believe he's alive? And I'm like, I don't know, probably not, but I don't know. And because you never know with these people. So just never know. Anyway. Yeah.
No, we don't know. There's a lot of uncertainty. And, it's because these stories, there's too many moving parts.
I know. By the way, our audience is saying, Susan, you can't touch this in some MC hammer pants. Yowza.
That's right.
You go, girl.
That's right. Just stop. I'm going to just stop. Oh, seriously, that gold pantsuit. I'm going to start hunting on Amazon. Maybe she got it off of Amazon.
I don't know. I know a lot of
Anyway.
people think that she's amazing. I'm not one of them. So right away I knew that something was very wrong and that there was not the shooter. Did you hear the comedian that actually kind of dropped a little thing in his comedic routine, and he said Israel and America actually had planted a bomb in the microphone, but it didn't go off right, so the shrapnel hit him. And then he was carried off. And I thought that was kind of an interesting way to sort of do it with humor, if that's the case, if that's truth about what really happened, like it didn't go off properly. And remember the guy in the brown plaid that was standing right in front of him, and not the guy behind him, but the guy in front of him.
Yes,
I had a friend that was there, had a really weird suspicion about him, went and talked to him, and he said the whole entire team was replaced right before the event, and that because they weren't doing anything that day, and so the whole team was replaced. And then he said to her, seriously, to my friend, he said, oh, and nothing ever happens in Utah, and then started smiling. And she was like, oh, that creeped me out. So he was standing right in front of Charlie, and then did something weird on his arm, like triggered something. It was very strange what he was doing, and right when that happened. So could it have been a bomb in the microphone that didn't go off, and an
explosive, like they had in the pagers.
Who knows?
When all those pagers went off in the Middle East. It's,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she had that creepy feeling to go talk to him because she was angry that they weren't paying attention to what was going on around him, and he wasn't paying attention at all, and he was just like, well, we're the new security today. And Charlie had the same team for a long time, and so it was really strange that this new team had just shown up in Utah. So very, very coordinated. 33 hours, Kash Patel and his 33 hours. So that was weird. The governor standing up lying, saying that the perpetrator changed clothes 3 or 4 times because you do that when you're the perpetrator. I was like, this story is just getting weirder and weirder and weirder. So living in Utah and living close to where the Patsy lived, and one of my kids went to high school with the Patsy. It's just a strange set of events. So we are coming up on the year of that. So what did you have? I'm so sorry, Susan. What did you want to talk about?
No, it's fine. I just wanted to add something about Governor Cox.
Utah.
I was reading a report by somebody who'd been invited to a town forum. What are those called? Town hall forum. And it was by Governor Cox, and then the Atlantic magazine was there. So Cox set this up, and it was for the Atlantic magazine to then just lecture people about trust in journalism, and trust in journalism having fallen off, and how to regain trust in journalism. He said, and when that final speaker from the Atlantic was done, there was nobody that came on and said, well, thank you for being here. It was great. Everybody, the people in charge just all left.
Yeah.
And he said it was the strangest thing, and it ticked him off because they were recording it. They were filming it, filming the audience, filming almost like they needed the footage of them lecturing. And he's like, what is this? And so here again, you see Cox telling people we have to be nicer. We have to be kinder. We have to believe more in journalism. That was the vibe. And, and then treating people like an audience, like disposable, like we're useful than not useful. And I thought, this guy who invites the Atlantic.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't surprise me. He was on Time magazine, and he wanted to be on the cover of Time. So anybody's on the cover of Time, it's pretty fishy, because the Time magazine is a government brainwashing tool, and it was since the beginning with Henry Luce. It was manufactured in the very beginning as a propaganda tool, and so Henry Luce was with the Council on Foreign Relations, and he's the one that started that. So what was I saying?
Well, we're talking about Cox.
Oh yeah.
And
so he's on the cover of Time, and they call him the conservative the red governor who's blue. Trying to pass that off as a compliment.
The peacemaker. So there's this whole effort for us to be peaceful and civil and not to disagree with each other. It's really important. They say that we just don't have these disagreements, or that we listen politely, which is fine. They don't want to listen to us. They call us a mob if we disagree with them. But a lot of these policies were created for international discussion between countries, not in a democracy where you're supposed to have a very rigorous exchange of ideas and competition of ideas, where no, my idea is better for how to handle this state or neighborhood thing, and not to just be squashed and call it reminds me, a friend went to her child's school and said, can we get healthier snacks? It's all junk food, for snacks. And they said, well, nobody else has asked for that. So she went around, she got all these parents to sign a list. And she's like, here's the list of all the parents. And the woman looked at her and said, you're being divisive. So they don't want us disagreeing with them. They want a
unity.
Compliant.
Unity,
they want
people.
this unity is fake. The unity they want is fake. It's for control. It's so alarming.
Well,
anyway,
unity is wrapped in kindness. So if you're in unity, you're kind. If you don't call out the politicians because you're being nice, then that is unity and kindness. And so
right. It's not supposed to happen, right? In our discourse for political ideas, and in our families, yes, we're supposed to have kindness and unity. Anyway, I wanted, before we run out of time, I had wanted to talk about this fascinating essay in the New York Times. I love when they just have these revelations and then they try and come up with their own solutions, and it's been sitting in front of them the whole time. Why so few babies? We might have overlooked the biggest reason of all. It's by a guest contributor, Anna Sussman. And she wrote a forthcoming book, Inconceivable, The Impossibility of Family in an Age of Uncertainty. And her whole premise, as they went around and interviewed people, why aren't you having children? They're like, the future is too uncertain with climate change and AI. And you're like, whoa, those are all media hyper topics, right? What is the media hyper focus on? Climate change. It focuses on AI. This woman, they interview people who have stable jobs, they have advanced degrees, and they're like, but we're still not sure about the future. We can't predict. And you're like, you're not sure about the future. If you go back to a time when people were having kids, there was a lot more volatility. There was a lot more upheaval. There were wars. There were economic depressions. There were all these things happening. People still had children. And so she said, for one woman said she has a master's degree in public health, this person who's uncertain. She's worried about sending a future child to school with unvaccinated classmates. That's why she's not having children. And you're like, you cannot be serious. She says, we felt like we had worked hard on ourselves, making sure that our finances and our health and everything was in order. And now those plans are on hold because everything is just so impossible to know. It is just amazing because there is a group having children, and it is the religious people who have faith in God, faith in families. They see a higher principle, a higher order. But you can see why this is becoming a big interest of the Democrats. Can you see why this is becoming their big interest?
Yeah.
Because they're so freaked out over, we're losing, our voting base is really drying up. And if we can't import illegals, by the thousands, by the millions, we're going to be at, their public schools are shutting down. I read there were 120 elementary schools in New York City that had under 500 students, which means they're just on the verge of being shut down, which means that goes into a neighborhood doom spiral, right?
Right.
They said that they call it a lack of vibes about the future. It's a vibe problem about, this is what she's talking about. And I was like, it's inescapable and crushing sense that the future is too uncertain for the lifelong commitment of having a child. I mean, they have screwed up these people's heads so badly with all of their calculations about the future. She said, call it the vibes theory of democratic decline. And I thought, oh my gosh, it's a lack of faith in the future. It's a lack of faith in God. And it turns out that another person wrote a book called Hannah and Her Children. And she interviewed all these women who had large families, and some of them had careers, and faith was key to them having large families, almost exclusively. One of the people talked about how in the past, people look at their parents, and their parents would get, education and sometimes work, but they also had kids in their 20s, right? In their 30s. Because when did you start having children?
I was 26.
Yes, that's exactly when I had my first child at 26. And I had my last at 40. I had 7 children. And so when I say, I had 7 children, people go, did you just start really young, like as a teenager? I go, no.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of children if you're, healthy and committed to it. But they have run into this problem that they have literally terrorized their own voters with doom and gloom about the future. They used to complain about preppers being doom and gloom. And actually, preppers were the super optimists. Preppers were like, doesn't matter what happens.
Right.
I've got this, right?
Right. And
it's a mentality, because my husband was a prepper and a survival instructor. He's like, anti-fragile. It's like whatever comes, not only can you handle it, you can thrive in it. I used to laugh because I would say, what are these poppy seeds? He's like, I'm going to be the biggest drug supplier for pain relief. If the grid goes down and people are out of pain medicine, we can grow poppies. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. I think he was half joking. But the idea was, it doesn't matter. You're going to thrive in a situation. But they have cowed these people. They've turned them into cowards, essentially, as I read it. That there's too much inequality. And to be fair, there's so many forces and people pulling the strings at higher levels. With interest rate changes, the interest rates were so low just a few years ago, and now they're so high, and housing prices are so high. And people are like, this article points out, first-time home buyers have now reached an average age of 40 years old for an average first-time home buyer. So, can you blame people at some level for having the rug pulled out from under them all the time? By the politicians, by the bureaucrats, right?
Right.
So I just thought, this is fascinating that they're waking up to the fact that it is the religious people who are choosing to have the big families and are uncowed, not cowardly about the future, because we have faith, believe in prayer, and not to underestimate that. It is like a superpower. People would say, well, look at all the Catholics that died in the Irish famine. Yeah, and a lot of them came over and moved to Appalachia and started, farming and landsteading and homesteading. And there were a lot of survivors out of that, including my family. I have half Polish family, half Irish. And those Irish people, they came from hardscrabble backgrounds, some of them. Others came over at the founding of this country. So, the fact that we now have a choice about fertility, I noticed Natalie Portman, 44, having a baby. She's like, it's a miracle baby. And I'm like, hormones, you have to have hormones at 44 to have a baby or to contain a baby. Or maybe she's got a surrogate baking the baby and she's just pretending to be pregnant. I don't know.
Well, Beyonce did that. So, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So I just find it really fascinating. This woman who felt so insecure with her master's degree and afraid of future classmates who don't have or aren't vaccinated. She said they decided to finally move to Minneapolis, where mere days after their offer was accepted, Department of Homeland Security forces descended on the city. And she says, watching members of their community rally to protect one another further bolstered her sense of agency. I really think witnessing the bravery of people in the place that's becoming our home again kind of shifted something for us. Perhaps this was a world. In other words, people rising up against ICE was her clue that it was going to be okay to have kids. You can't even make that up.
Yeah.
You can't even make that up. But they are in a sad, sore place where their ideas have become so twisted about family and fertility, and that they could turn it on and turn it off, and it's just not the case.
Well,
so
yeah,
I just think it's the underlying,
Yeah.
it's really the underlying wave of our civilization, these
Mhm.
attitudes and this type of culture
Mm.
that's underpinning everything.
Yeah. Can't
So
disagree with you. Yeah. Yeah.
that's kind of what I wanted to talk about.
you.
And I think it doesn't, if you see these coordinated articles, I think they are coordinated. Wall Street Journal just read one that talked about the beta moms. It used to be the tiger moms. Now it's the beta moms.
Interesting.
Who are the laid back, come home when the street lights come on, get your homework done, but I'm not going to hover. They don't care if their kids get into an elite school because they're not convinced that being a graduate of an elite school is going to give you a good life.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that, I think a lot of that had to do with Charlie Kirk coming forward and saying, look, you can be very successful without graduating with a 4-year degree from an affluent school.
You can.
You can probably make more money, right? From some of the, so he had a lot to do with that. And I think that's being picked up by the culture.
Yeah.
And moms can just be a little more relaxed.
One of the comments, Angel says, remember All in the Family, Gloria and Mike, Rob Reiner, didn't want to have kids because the world is uncertain, and there's been so much messaging in shows and movies like that. Oh my gosh. And it's good to get some grounding as far as like understanding where education, I played that education clip in the beginning, and the person was going to college who started to do the deep dive on McGraw, like not McGraw.
McGraw-Hill.
Yeah, McGraw-Hill. So who owns it? And it was, of course, Tom.
Reuters? Was it the Reuters?
Sorry. My brain today. No, it was McGraw-Hill, and it was Tom Gores, and that his brother owns people in Hollywood, and then this guy owned like just some weird things, and so doing these deep dives and understanding that the college books are brainwashing, and the high school books are brainwashing, and you go back to Norman Dodd and you realize that Norman Dodd did the investigation for Congress 1907. Carnegie Foundation and Ford Foundation set out to change education and to co-opt it and rewrite history so that we weren't learning about our Constitution. We weren't learning about truth. We were learning about it. We were just being indoctrinated, period. And so I'm so glad that moms are starting to figure all this out, that because for a long time they weren't. They were just, and like myself too, before I ever started doing this for a living, I just sort of took what was out there as truth. I mean, you don't think to question. We're not curious enough to ask the right questions. And that came from, yesterday's show with Morley Robbins. We just don't ask the right questions anymore. So I'm glad that people are starting to ask some questions and go, well, do I really need this degree? And why are my kids told from kindergarten that they have to go to college? And it's like, why? Because the indoctrination's complete? I mean, after that many years, I don't know.
Right. No, I know it's true. And now there's so much more information available. If you know where to find it. It was Robert Maxwell. So Ghislaine's father owned McGraw-Hill at a certain point. And, that's Epstein's pal's father. And he was a spy, they said. So yeah, now it's owned by a private equity firm. Who doesn't want to learn stuff that's put out by a private equity firm? You can only imagine what their interests are, of course. So this really was the corporatization of everything that we knew at some point was going to happen. We were at the mercy of corporations and their minions, who are the governments. So that's why it's important to maintain our psychological independence to the best of our abilities, know how our bodies work.
I know.
And for goodness sakes, have kids and grandkids. Those are the best.
We so need to understand health. We so need to understand the lies The lies. There's so many lies. We need to we need to be more curious about them, ask more questions, do more homework. You know, we're a people that doesn't like to do a lot of homework. We like to be entertained. And so we like that sitting, entertain me, you know, show me a movie, show me a series, let me binge watch, but we're not really good at asking questions and saying, hey, is that a ballroom or what's going on under the ballroom? That could probably, because why in the world would a ballroom be the thing that needed to be built right now? Well, I think it's what's under the ballroom. And they've made allusions to it. It's just a matter of insinuations about it, but always calling it the ballroom so people don't look. It's kind of like that. We get hooked on the surface issue and never on what they're trying to do, the rollout.
Well, the media is in surface mode. Why are they in surface mode?
Yeah.
And the thing is, you realize every spy agency in the world and their governments know what's under the ballroom. How come we can't know what's under the ballroom? Tell us, right? Just tell us what it's going to be. Everybody else knows. All these governments around the world know because their spy agencies do know.
I know.
So it's ridiculous.
That is the
it's
truth.
Absurd.
Wow. Well, I so appreciate you coming on. Thank you, Susan.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
You
Kate.
bet. Tomorrow, she's always game, and I love that about Susan. Tomorrow, tomorrow we are going to be. I have Greg Carpenter, my NSA guy, coming on, and so that'll be a lot of fun. And of course, I'm so glad that you joined me today and Susan, because it's always fun to be able to kind of go through these things and understand how in the world we got schnookered. And for those that don't believe that, I'm so sorry about that. Also, let me stop the music for just a second. Please go get the cancer book on katetalks.myshopify.com. And the only reason I'm telling you this is because there's no book like it. It was not written by AI. And the book is like 14, 15 pages. It's all of the stuff to do. If you get the diagnosis, this is what you do. And I'm going to save you hours of homework. We were just talking about homework. I'm going to save you hours and hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours of homework. So these are the things that work. So, and this is what doesn't. Stay away from the snake oil. Everyone's going to have an opinion. Everyone's going to have a product for you. But this is what actually works. So, and this is after so many interviews with the top holistic doctors and the doctors that actually know about health. And so, katetalks.myshopify.com, katetalks.myshopify.com. Go get it. Also, I take Cardio Miracle every day, cardiomiracle.com/Kate. It really shouldn't be called Cardio Miracle. It really should just be called Miracle, because what it does is it delivers vitamin D, all the minerals, the vitamins into your system in a great way, and actually gets into your system, actually absorbs, and you'll feel so much better. And I know people that have been taking this for years, and they are so active. They're older and they can do things that young people do. They're so active, and it's just a phenomenal product. When I started taking 2 doses a day, Cardio Miracle, it was a total game changer instead of 1 dose. So take that. Also, I did a show yesterday on copper. We are so deficient in copper. Copper tells the other minerals what to do. Go to Formula IQ, formulaiq.com, and put in the code Kate, always the code Kate on Cardio Miracle, Formula IQ. Put in the code Kate, get your Recuperate Copper. There's 2 kinds of copper, Copper IQ, Recuperate Copper. I do Recuperate Copper. It's got beef liver in it. It's got turmeric in it. It's an amazing product. So you're going to want that. Okay. So please go and get that, because, man, it'll make a difference. You want your hair to grow. You want all those things. It will make a difference. Okay. You'll see that difference. And what it does is it makes the body make the right kind of iron for your body. Instead of taking an iron, don't take iron supplements. Take copper, because copper makes iron and it regulates iron in the cell. So that was a phenomenal show with Morley yesterday. Check it out. Go to YouTube and find it and listen to it or Rumble, or X, or Kate Talks About Everything on Insta. Join that. And because I do little updates and things, but Kate Talks About Everything. But go to katetalks.myshopify.com and get the cancer book. I'm just about to put out a bundle of ebooks together that you can get together. And I'll give you the topics once they're published, but it's just about to go up. And I'm telling you, so worth it. katetalks.myshopify.com. I take what I've learned and publish it so that you can see it written. And when you get the ebooks, they're sent to your email. Make sure and get that ebook, print it out, save it on your computer for future reference, because you or somebody you know will get cancer. 1 in 2 gets cancer in their lifetime. So if you want to know what to do, that is what I would send you. If you were a friend of mine, this is the product I would send you. The product. This is the information packet that I would send you. And this is what I sent to people when they would ask me off the air, people that I know. So I would send them this. So please go and get the product, get the information. It's a book on cancer. It's katetalks.myshopify.com. It's called Cancer Don't Panic. And I promise you, you will love this 14 and a half pages of amazing information, who to talk to, what to do, what to look at. So please do that. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for tuning in. And I like to go down these rabbit holes and share what I'm finding with you. And there's always a lot more evidence to the rabbit holes than there is to the narrative. It's the truth. That's what I found. All right, you guys, be faithful, be fearless. I'll get the website fixed. I'm not quite sure what's going on with KateDalleyRadio.com, but I will get it fixed. And thank you so much for tuning in.